Imagine stumbling upon a family frozen in time, not in some distant Egyptian tomb or the arid highlands of Peru, but in the icy heart of North America, a place where history sleeps beneath layers of frost, waiting for just the right moment to jolt awake and whisper its secrets. This isn't a tale from the land of pyramids or the Valley of the Kings. No, our story begins far closer to home, amid the unforgiving cold of Greenland's Kilakitsoq settlement, where, in August 2023, a discovery as chilling as it was astonishing emerged from the permafrost. 8 individuals, men, women, and even a 6-month-old child, had been preserved for over 5 centuries, their skin, hair, and even fingernails astonishingly intact, thanks to the relentless embrace of Arctic cold. But before we delve deeper into this bizarre family reunion, let's set the scene. North America isn't typically the first place that springs to mind when you think of mummies. For centuries, the word itself conjured visions of linen-wrapped pharaohs, elaborate tombs, and golden masks. Yet, as we'll uncover, the continent has its own collection of mummified oddities, preserved not by careful ritual, but by the sheer force of nature itself. So, what makes the Kilakitsoq mummies so special? Picture this: archaeologists unearthing 8 bodies, each one so well preserved that you could see the lines on their faces, the color of their hair, even the delicate curve of their fingernails. It's as if they'd simply drifted off to sleep one winter's night, only to be tucked away by ice, untouched by time or decay. Scientists believe these Inuit individuals died around 1475 AD. That's before Columbus ever set sail, before Jamestown, before the Mayflower, before most of the stories we tell about this continent even began. Let's pause and think about that for a second. In a world where most ancient remains are lucky to leave behind a scrap of bone or a fragment of pottery, here was a whole family, frozen mid-chapter in a story that reads more like a mystery novel than a history textbook. What happened to them? Was it disease, starvation, ritual, or something stranger still? The answers, as always, lie in the details. To unravel the mystery, scientists turn to the evidence at hand. The Kilakitsoq mummies weren't buried in the ground, but placed inside a shallow rocky cave, wrapped in sealskin and clothing so expertly crafted it would put modern winter gear to shame. The cold, dry air of Greenland did the rest, halting the usual decay and creating a time capsule from the Middle Ages. Even the 6-month-old child, heartbreakingly tiny, had been swaddled with care. Some of the adults showed signs of disease. One woman had advanced tumors, another had traces of old injuries. But there was no sign of violence, no catastrophic disaster. It was as if the family had simply vanished into the ice, leaving behind a puzzle for future generations to piece together. And what a puzzle it was! The Kilakitsoq mummies gave scientists a rare glimpse into Inuit life in the late 15th century. Their clothes, made from layers of bird skin, seal hide, and reindeer fur, were both functional and beautiful, stitched with bone needles and decorated with intricate patterns. Even the hairstyles told a story: elaborate braids, clean shaves, and careful grooming, hinting at rituals and customs lost to time. The family's diet, reconstructed from hair samples and stomach contents, revealed a menu heavy on seafood, seal, and local berries. Hardly the bland fare of survival, but a culinary tradition rich in flavor and nutrients. It's tempting at this point to imagine the mummies as mere relics, objects to be catalogued, studied, and admired. But the reality is far more profound. These were real people, with hopes, fears, and stories as vivid as our own. They lived in a world defined by ice and wind, where survival depended on skill, cooperation, and the whims of nature. Their faces, frozen in expressions of peace or pain, remind us that history isn't just a list of dates and battles. It's a tapestry woven from the lives of ordinary folk, caught in extraordinary circumstances. But the Kilakitsoq mummies are just one chapter in North America's odd history of frozen people. Let's journey south to a land where ice meets fire, and the ground itself seems to breathe with ancient secrets. High in the Andes Mountains, near the summit of the Lulailako volcano, another chilling discovery awaited. In 1999, 3 children, known as the Children of Lulai-Lako, were found buried in a stone chamber, perfectly preserved by the thin, freezing air of the mountain peak. Though technically on the border of Argentina and Chile, their story is intimately tied to the greater drama of the Americas. Unlike the Quiliquitzok family, the Lulai-Lako children had not died by accident or misfortune. Their preservation was deliberate, part of a ritual sacrifice performed by the Inca over 500 years ago. The children, aged between 6 and 15, had been chosen for their innocence and beauty, prepared for months with special diets and ceremonies. Their final moments were peaceful. Sedated with coca leaves and alcohol, they drifted into sleep as the priests placed them in their tombs, surrounded by offerings of textiles, pottery, and figurines. What makes these children so fascinating isn't just their preservation, but what their bodies reveal about Inca society. Advanced DNA analysis, hair samples, and scans have shown that they were given special treatment, rich foods, ornate clothing, and even drugs to ease their passage into the afterlife. The details are both astonishing and haunting. One girl's hair still held traces of ceremonial braids, her face serene as if she were merely resting. Another child's skin bore the marks of careful grooming, with fingernails clipped and skin cleaned for the final journey. The cold, dry air of the Andes acted as a natural freezer, halting decay and preserving their bodies in a state that defies belief. The discovery of the Lulai-Lako children sent shockwaves through the archaeological world. Here were mummies as well preserved as any in Egypt, revealing not just the brutality of ritual sacrifice, but the tenderness with which the Inca prepared their chosen ones. The frozen bodies became windows into a world where death was both an ending and a beginning, a passage to the gods wrapped in the silence of perpetual ice. And then there's Juanita, the ice maiden of the Andes, whose story reads like a detective thriller. In the mid-1980s, a team of climbers and archaeologists stumbled upon her at the summit of Mount Amparo, her body perfectly preserved by centuries of frost. She was young, just a girl, sacrificed in a ritual between 1440 and 1480 AD. What makes Juanita's story especially odd is what happened next. In 2023, Polish and Peruvian scientists unveiled a reconstructed silicone bust of Juanita, based on digital images, scans, and even DNA analysis. For the first time in half a millennium, the world could see her face, her eyes, her hair, her expression, recreated in lifelike detail. There's something both touching and eerie about seeing the face of someone who lived and died so long ago. It's as if the past is reaching out, inviting us to remember not just the grand sweep of empires and wars, but the individual lives that made it all possible. Juanita's bust isn't just a curiosity, it's a testament to the power of modern science to resurrect history, piece by piece, detail by detail. But let's not forget the oddities closer to home. North America has its own share of strange mummified remains, preserved not by deliberate ritual, but by the sheer oddness of nature. The Great Salt Lake of Utah, for instance, has yielded bodies so well preserved by salt and minerals that their skin is still rubbery after centuries. In the arid caves of Nevada, ancient Native American remains have been found, their hair and clothing intact, the result of dry air and mineral-rich soil. What sets the Quiliquitzok mummies apart, however, is the sheer clarity with which they speak to us across time. Their faces, hands, and even the folds of their clothing are as vivid as if they were carved yesterday. They remind us that history is full of surprises, moments when the ordinary becomes extraordinary, and the quiet corners of the world erupt with drama and intrigue. So, what does all this tell us about North America's frozen people? For one, it shows that mummification isn't just the result of careful planning or religious ritual. Sometimes, it's the work of wind, ice, and chance, the odd combination of temperature, humidity, and luck that can turn a tragedy into a time capsule. The Quiliquitzok family didn't set out to become mummies. Their preservation was an accident, a fluke of geography and climate. Yet, in their frozen silence, they've become ambassadors from a forgotten era, their stories woven into the fabric of history. And the oddities don't stop there. Consider the quirks of ancient burial practices. Some Native American cultures, especially in the American Southwest, buried their dead in caves lined with reeds and bark, creating conditions ideal for natural mummification. The resulting remains often wore necklaces of shell, feathers, or bone, and sometimes clutched tools or weapons, a reminder that even in death, the business of living went on. Then there are the accidental mummies, miners, explorers, and travelers who perished in the mountains, only to be found decades or centuries later, their bodies frozen, their clothes still bearing the marks of their last journey. These odd discoveries aren't just macabre footnotes, they're windows into the everyday dangers and dramas of life in North America's wild places. And let's not forget the role of humor in all this. There's something undeniably comical about the idea of a family reunion taking place in a cave, with everyone dressed in the finest seal skins, waiting patiently for a visit from future archaeologists, or the thought of Inca priests meticulously braiding the hair of children, all the while unaware that their handiwork would become the subject of international fascination centuries later. History, as always, has a way of turning tragedy into curiosity, and curiosity into legend. But beneath the oddity lies a deeper truth. The frozen people of North America remind us that life, in all its strangeness, persists through the most unlikely circumstances. Their bodies, preserved by accident or design, are testaments to the resilience of cultures that thrived in the harshest environments imaginable. They speak of ingenuity, adaptation, and the relentless human drive to survive, even when the odds are stacked against us. So, next time you hear the word mummy, don't just think of Egypt or Peru. Remember the icy caves of Greenland, the windswept peaks of the Andes, and the mineral-rich deserts of Utah and Nevada. Remember the families who huddled together against the cold, the children chosen for sacrifice, and the miners lost to snow and time. Remember that history is full of oddities, moments when the past refuses to fade and the frozen silence speaks louder than words. And who knows, perhaps somewhere, beneath a blanket of snow or behind the walls of a forgotten cave, another frozen secret waits to be discovered. Another mystery to puzzle over, another story to tell. Because in the end, history isn't just what happened, it's what remains, the strange, unexpected, and often hilarious legacy of those who came before us. So, whether you're an archaeologist with a pickaxe, a historian with a notebook, or just a curious soul with a taste for the bizarre, keep your eyes peeled. North America's frozen people are more than just oddities. They're living reminders that the strangest stories are often the truest, and the truest stories are the ones that never quite thaw.